Hello to all my people, and if you're watching live, checking us out on YouTube, or listening on your favorite podcast provider, you are most definitely my people. Welcome to another episode of Botch Bots and Share Shots. I'm your host, a chef by trade and a mark by choice. I am the Will Gray, and joining me tonight is a graduate from the Rhodes Wrestling Academy. He was the first Rhodes Wrestling Academy champion. He is the Blood, Sweat, and Tears champion. He is Lucas Chase. Lucas, how are you, brother?
I'm doing very well, man. Thank you for having me on. Very excited to be here.
Man, I am super hyped to have you. I'm really excited about this, and I get to do this often, but one thing that's really unique about this conversation is every time I have it with somebody, it's fresh and it's new because I get to hear your side of the story. And I always call this part the origin story, talking about exposure and stuff like that. I grew up in the American Southeast, late 80s, early 90s, WCW, NWA days. That's what I grew up watching. What did you grow up watching?
The same, actually. I'm a Northeast guy, born and raised Bronx, New York, and I actually was a huge WCW Crockett Promotions NWA guy. I was a little bit outside the norm because up here it was World Wrestling Federation, right, and then it was like some Calgary stuff. But in the 90s and whatnot, it was still, still tape trading and things that we had Eastern Championship Wrestling. It was Extreme Championship Wrestling, ECW. But I was a huge WCW guy. I loved Flair. I loved the Horsemen. A huge Arn Anderson guy. Yeah, that's what I grew up with, man. And then, WWF took over the Attitude Era and blew it all out of the water.
So as a young wrestling fan, you eventually had to have that internal conversation. You were like, fuck it. I want to do this. I want to be a pro wrestler. Before we dive into the Rhodes Wrestling Academy, did you start there or did you have training previously to hooking up with Dustin?
So I actually had training previously before hooking up with Dustin, which is still really surreal to me for me to be able to say that I am trained by the natural. But I actually I started training straight out of high school in 2008. I initially trained up here in CT with someone who essentially just ended up stealing my money. I thought I was trained up and started working shows, and yeah, that wasn't the case. So a lot of it was, I bounced around from school to school because back then it was very hard to just get into schools, especially still in 2008, 2009. And I was working as much as possible, took a big break, came back in, ended up going to Paradise Alley Professional Wrestling and training there for a bit under Mario Mancini and Paul Roma. And then got the phone call, flew down to Texas and, got my feet wet in a very, very big way with Dustin Rhodes and the Rhodes Wrestling Academy in the second ever class. Became the first ever RWA champion. And as of recent, my most recent place that I've gone to train is Team 3D Academy in Danbury, Connecticut, under Bubba Ray Dudley.
That's quite the list of people, man. When you talk about, hear the guys talk and they'll talk about who they've trained with and the wrestling family trees and stuff they come from. You've had a chance to work with two royal families in a lot of ways. Bubba Ray Dudley, going all the way back to the ECW days, historic family, but specifically the Rhodes. When you got into the school, you started training with it. What was your first impression like? Because you just said it still to this day. It's surreal that you're a part of that family tree now. So getting into the school, starting with the process, what was training like with Dustin once you got in there and you were like, this is real life now?
Training with him was and is amazing. It was something that I'm glad I was able to sit underneath that tree of knowledge and just absorb everything. Dustin obviously comes from, and this is completely biased because not only am I in that family tree now, as far as wrestling terms goes, but I was a huge Rhodes fan, period, growing up. I got my first taste of Dustin as Goldust, of course. And then, I followed Dusty my entire life. Rest his soul. Never got the opportunity to meet him. He had passed before I went down there. But, looking at Cody, being a fan of Cody and being able to meet Cody and seeing where his career trajectory has taken him really, really shines a light on that never give up mentality. And just learning underneath that amount of knowledge combined, you think about it, Dustin's been wrestling since 1987. 1988 as a professional, right? So he has wrestled in about 5 different decades. He has over 30 something years of experience, and he got to learn under guys like Arn Anderson and Steamboat and Flair and his dad. And, you know, being able to sit down and be in a wrestling room with him and take notes and have him show me, you know, how to make bad habits and how to reforge myself and how to recreate myself and to be comfortable with the uncomfortable is something he really loves to say. There's nothing I would ever have wanted more in my life than to be able to say that I'm a part of that wrestling family. I think the Rhodes family is the number one family in professional wrestling history, going back to Dusty all the way to today with Cody. You know, it's something I can't take back and I never wish to. And then, you know, most recently training with Bubba Ray Dudley. I didn't train with Bubba on a very long level. It was a few months up in Danbury, and I do plan on going back to Team 3D Academy. I still have a lot of friends that train 3D Academy and so forth. But Bubba, you know, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And Dustin, in leaving Texas when I came back up home, he told me, he goes, I'm not the end all be all. Continue to train, continue to learn from different places and go to different places and learn different things. And the one thing I can say that was a stark difference is that, you know, Dustin comes from that old school mentality of storytelling and psychology, right? And so does Bubba. But the difference is that, you know, there's more than one way to paint a picture. And if I could say Dustin's training style is like looking at a Van Gogh, and everything's very neat and everything's very precise and articulate and very put in its place. And when you look at it, you go, that's a beautiful painting. And Bubba's like a Jackson Pollock, where there's beauty in the chaos and there's a lot of different things happening. But once you zone in on what you're supposed to focus on, your mind just opens up and you realize that you're learning things that no one else is going to be able to teach you.
That right there, just an instant clip. I'm just going to go ahead and make that mental note because that was gorgeous the way you described it. You know, making every brushstroke mean something. Everything has that point. In the cooking world, you know, it's very like those guys are the people that cook the recipe 1,000 times so they know it they can sit there with their eyes closed and just know that's exactly where every piece goes, every cut with your knife, you know, and then that very, not avant-garde, but that free flow form in the mind where you have to see the whole picture and it all makes sense. I love that analogy with Pollock, and yeah, that was gorgeous. So we moved past the origin story a little bit. Let's get into the middle of the meat and potatoes of your career, so to speak. You know, early 2000s-ish range, you got that first call. You had a chance to go up for AEW Dark.
Yeah.
When you've had a chance to go up multiple times now, but let's talk about that very first time. Having been on the indies, we talked about when you first started and then you got in with Dustin and then you've worked with Bubba. But when you got called up for AEW, what were your nerves like day of when you got to the show?
Very, very much nervous wreck. And I was blessed to be able to go while I was still training with Dustin. So I got my first shot. It was right after COVID, and it was the first AEW show on the road from Jacksonville.
That's cool.
So they went out to the HEB Center in Austin, Texas, and I was able to get on that. And I went with two of my very good friends in Zach Taylor and Chad Lennox, who's both also Rhodes guys. And very, very good professional wrestlers. If anybody, you know, wants to check them out, definitely check out Chad Lennox and Zach Taylor on Instagram and Twitter. You know, and we were able to go there, and they had gone to Jacksonville to do Dark before me. So they were kind of giving me the lay of the land a little bit, but it's a different animal when you're on the road and you're in an arena. So my nerves were crazy. I was wearing a suit and tie. I remember texting my wife before the morning of, and I was like, I don't know how I should tie my tie. Like, I don't know if I should like do something a little bit more extravagant or something like that. And I ended up going with a nice little, tri knot, and, Captain Sean Dean actually complimented my tie that day. So it was actually really good. But it was nerve wracking. I'm walking through the door as a peer to many people that I grew up watching that influenced my in-ring style and influenced my promo style and influenced me as a person. And I got to meet a lot of them that day. Cody being one of them, thank God. I had a wonderful conversation with Kenny Omega. And a quick funny story, if you don't mind.
No,
Um,
absolutely.
I was actually standing in catering, and they gave us the green light to go eat after contracted talent. And it's kind of like walking into the lunchroom on the first day of high school, and you're the new student, and everyone's from the same small town. um, Excuse me. So I'm standing there, and I go up to get some food, and I get my food, and you turn around, and every single table is a who's who of wrestlers, right? So there was one seat at one table. So I go over to the table, very, very, very solemnly, and I look at everyone there, and I go, "Excuse me, can I sit here? Is it okay if I have a seat?" Yeah, sure, kid, have a seat. Da da da. So I sit down, and I am eating lunch with Sting, Mark Henry, and the Big Show, Paul White. So, so right then and there, that's like, holy cow! And not
Kind of
only am
made
I
the day
sitting there,
worth it, man.
I'm getting ready to work Powerhouse Hobbs in my first ever AEW dark match. And I don't know that anybody knows who I am, but Paul White looks at me. He goes, "You're one of Dustin's kids, right?" And I'm like, "Yes, sir. Yes, I am." He goes, "I'll be calling your match later on Elevation. Looking forward to seeing your work." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much." So that, and it was the easiest I've ever cut a slice of steak in my life, because I did not want to shake the table. I didn't want to put my elbows up. I was just there, just like, I'm a mouse here. Don't look at me. But it was pretty cool. I got to chat up with Vicky Guerrero. I got to chat up with Dean Malenko there. I got to chat up with Arn Anderson and a bunch of other people. And actually made some impressions and some connections that I still have to this day. So it was very beneficial, very nerve wracking, and very, very quick in ring work. Will Hobbs, Powerhouse, is a force to be reckoned with, and working with him was incredibly easy. And I'm very happy and thankful that he was my first AEW match.
So when you look at, training stylistically, we talked about Dustin's style with you. Going into AEW Dark, there's there would be an obvious difference between a typical house show for an indie show or something, and then a TV taping like for Dark. Do you think training with Dustin and being at the academy kind of gave you an edge for TV tapings? It kind of helped you, like, telling your story a little bit better.
1,000%. And I talk about that Van Gogh, right? And every brushstroke matters, and you can tell exactly what it is. Well, the stark difference between training and working the indies, and I mentioned breaking bad habits, was that with Dustin, we focused a lot on wrestling for television. Everything was hard cam, work your facials, up bright, make sure that they can see you. You're selling for the people in the cheap seats. You're not selling for the five guys that paid for the front. So that's the biggest difference. And in training for television and stuff like that, I think I have a big edge, especially like working on the bigger indies, on knowing where my ring positioning needs to be. Not taking anything away from anybody who works on the independent scene that are very, very good and a very high level that I get to work with on a constant basis. But I just think that my mind is always as, how can we tell these stories and how can we put it in a ring that's going to translate not only to the people in the building, but through the camera lens. And I think that I know that working with Dustin and training with Dustin definitely gave me a leg up on that.
Let's move away from AEW now and kind of move back up into the neck of the woods you came from, the New York, New Jersey territory up there. You've done some work with Invictus, man. They're one of those indie territories that are just tearing it up right now. They're causing big waves. Yeah. They're bringing in constant talent.
Shout out to Alex who runs Invictus. He's doing an amazing job at that promotion.
Respond to my email, Alex. Hook your boy up. But PJ, Bougie, Takeover, I've had a ton of those guys. One of your tag team partners been on the show. Tons of talent coming out of that a locker room right now. What has your time been like with Invictus and having a chance to cross paths with like a PJ Savage or a Jay Bougie?
So I actually knew Jay and PJ from them coming up to CT a few times and working up here. And my first big Invictus match. So I actually quote unquote debuted with Invictus last summer, when Tessa Strength and Invictus had their conjoined show up here in Torrington, Connecticut. I ended up working on the Tessa Strength roster side of things against Red Sawyer and Mark Alexander, two big up and comers here in the Northeast. And that's how Alex got eyes on me. And then, the rest was history. I got to go down there for Bronxlandia, and I worked, I wrestled PJ Savage there in the Bronx, which was a huge homecoming for me. I grew up maybe about like 15 minutes across town from Bronxlandia, so it was really cool to get to return there as an adult and wrestle in that environment. And Invictus has been great. I love going down to the Bronx to wrestle. I get to see a lot of old friends and family, and just kind of get back to my roots and be grounded. Even though they announced me from Austin, Texas, I have a one of my T-shirt designs is actually, it says Bronx born, Connecticut raised, Texas forged, because those are three spots that made Lucas Chase exactly who he is.
Let's just keep knocking the bullet points off in your career, man. Victorium. The victorious BRG, Brett, another alumni of the show. Love that guy. Fantastic worker in the ring. Always put my boys over.
Shout out to my boy Brett, the new Northeast Wrestling Live champion right there.
Lots of shout outs tonight. Always put the boys over. What's the chemistry like right now with you and Victorium? Like having all of you guys together, working together as much as y'all can. Especially like I keep going back right now, that New York, New Jersey, that Massachusetts scene. We're going to get to Wrestling Open and stuff here in a minute, but like that territory right now is popping. I feel left out of the loop in Nashville right now because the Nashville indie scene's quieting down. There's not a ton happening, but it seems like New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, there's always big shows popping off. So how's it with Victorium? What's the chemistry like with you guys?
So Victorium is great. I think Victorium is the closest thing, and you can quote me on this. Victorium is the closest thing that anyone is going to get on the independent scene to the Four Horsemen. And I mean the original Four Horsemen. We're all guys that can hold our own in between the ropes, but we're all really good talkers. We're all really, really good. We have a presence about us individually. And when you put us together, we mesh very well. Brick City Boys, Victor Chase, Jay Cruz, one of the best top tier tag teams in the entire country right now. In the independents, BRG, one of the best technicians, one of the best mouthpieces, one of the best workers in the business right now from the Northeast territory. Myself, unmatched intensity, hard hitting, smash mouth, no nonsense, no frills, all steak, no sizzle. You know what I mean? And you put us four together and we are a force to be reckoned with, because we are all out there with, no matter how successful we are separate, we walk into the room together with the biggest chip on our shoulders every time, because when Victorium comes through that curtain, that the dial's going to get turned up, the mood's going to shift, and we're going to give you something that no one else can give you. And that is the Victorium. Remember the name, remember the legend. Sweet victory, baby.
I like when I get that raw intensity about it, because one of my favorite things about the indies is that it's still very real, and not in the real versus fake sense, but like the passion and the drive and the intensity. You know what I mean? That's what I like. That's why I focus so hard on indie wrestling, is the last 30 seconds of what you were saying is why I love indie wrestling. Let's keep checking them off. Wrestling Open, another indie scene that's blowing up right now. The White Eagle, man, it's got very strong ECW arena vibes, late 90s, you know what I mean? That crowd is ravenous when you get in that building. Being in Nashville, I haven't had a chance to make it up to MASH yet, but it's on my list for 2023, hopefully. What's it like when you cross that curtain and you're, standing across from an Alec Price or somebody like that and Wrestling Open, and the vibe of that crowd in that building?
That crowd's always hot. That crowd always shows up, no matter how many, no matter how little. Wrestling Open is a great outlook. and a great outlet for a lot of guys and girls in the business that are trying to cut our teeth and show everyone what we have to offer. And Wrestling Open is not for the lighthearted. Wrestling Open isn't for the people that do this as a hobby. Wrestling Open is not for the people that don't take this seriously. Wrestling Open is for guys and girls like me who it's nose to the grindstone. We eat, sleep, and breathe professional wrestling. This is what we want to do to put food on our families' tables and pay our mortgages and live comfortable lives. And we're going to put our bodies on the line every single week. I am, still someone who is scratching and clawing to become a regular roster member every single week on that platform. However, the guys and girls that are on there every single week, the guys and girls that come up like me sporadically, there's nothing like working in the White Eagle. That place is it just has a feeling to it. It just has a vibe to it. It does give you that ECW late 90s, aesthetic to it. And if you haven't been to the White Eagle for a Beyond show, if you haven't been to the White Eagle for a Wrestling Open show, do yourself a favor. If you're in the Massachusetts area, head up to Worcester and or Worcester, depending on how I'm from the Bronx, so I'm not really a big Boston or Mass fan, but it's Worcester to me. But do yourself a favor and get there. There's nothing like it. And standing across the ring from like an Alec Price, I want that one back. I want to go back and wrestle Alec again. I can wrestle Alec every damn day of my life. I don't care. He's that good. Prince Ahmed, Bobby Orlando, guys like Landon Hale, the Miracle Generation. I've been feuding with the Miracle Generation since they cut their teeth in this business 3-4 years ago.
Dustin and Kylan yeah, man.
See those kids doing what they're doing, man. It pushes me to raise my game and to make sure I don't get left behind. You know what I mean? Because that's the type of level of talent that's up there. Shout out to Main Event. Shout out to, all that entire roster. Victorium included. We're all up there.
For sure. When you look at your career, you currently hold the PAPW IC Championship, the Blood, Sweat, and Tears Championship. At one point in wrestling history, these territory titles were huge. And like I said, I keep going back to that because that's what I did as a fan. That's what made me fall in love with wrestling is the different territories of independent wrestling. All of these territory titles were huge. You're currently holding a couple. What was it like getting that call and then for being like, Lucas, man, you're our guy. We're going to put the belt on you, push you to the moon. What's it like being the guy and getting the call?
It's good. I mean, it's a lot of responsibility, but it's a good, great feeling. There's nothing like earning it. I'm all about earning it. I don't want anything handed to me. I don't want anything given to me. I want to take it. I want to cut my teeth. I want to be gritty. I want to be bruised, bloodied, battered, and say that no one can touch me. That's something that I wake up every morning and I look in the mirror and I practice my craft and I'm in the gym I drop my son off at school every single morning. And as soon as he gets out of the car, I'm headed to the gym. I'm headed to train while everyone else is asleep. And getting those phone calls from promoters, from guys in the business that are like, hey, we want you to represent us. We want you because we think you're the standard bearer. There's a reason that Danny Miles and myself, former TOS Tag Team Champions, call ourselves the standard because we're two of those guys. We surround ourselves with like-minded people. We surround ourselves and put ourselves in environments and in situations that are only going to progress our careers, progress our lives and our livelihoods naturally. And I take that very seriously. There's nothing that I chase more, no pun intended, than being the guy. And I've been the guy in many promotions, but it never, ever, ever, ever gets old. And I will never, ever not work for that top spot.
This right here has become one of my favorite questions to ask because before anybody ever becomes the guy, they have to be rookie. They've got to be green. They've got to be fresh and new to something. Looking back at your career now, though, Lucas in 2023, going back all the way to that kid out of high school, getting scammed out of his money. If you could go back to that guy and look at him, what advice would you give that person today, man?
Change nothing. Because I come from I took a big break with professional wrestling. From 2006 2013 to 2017, I was not in a professional wrestling ring. I didn't wrestle. I didn't work the indies. I took a giant break. And that break was not something that I wanted to do. That break was something that was induced due to addiction. I am, and I never used to talk about it, but I am in recovery. I am almost 4 years sober from alcohol. 100% haven't had a drink of alcohol in 4 years. And
That's
I
huge.
thank God
Congratulations,
every
by the way.
single day. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yes.
June 14th makes 4 years. So I'm
That's
coming up
amazing.
on it quick.
Yes.
And I've seen the bottom. I've hit the bottom. But it made me who I am today, and it made me hungry as I am today. And I think that if I would have continued down the straight and narrow path back then, I think I would have grew complacent. I think I would have rested on laurels, and I think I would have stopped trying to a certain extent on trying to be the very best. But because of that recovery, because of who I am in my personal life, professional wrestling is just an extension of that. And I actually, one of my logos is the sobriety logo with the circle and the triangle, and it says "Never Stop Moving," and I firmly believe that. I live my life by it. So if I could tell my younger self one thing, it would be to never stop moving. Always continue to push forward. A rolling stone gathers no moss. And to be a juggernaut in life is going to take you past your wildest dreams if you work as hard as you possibly can for it. I would have never thought a million years in 2013 when I quit professional wrestling, or stepped away rather, that I'll be sitting on a podcast today talking about how I trained with Dustin Rhodes, talking about how I know Bubba Ray Dudley and trained with him, talking about how I've wrestled Rhino, how I've wrestled Jay Lethal, how I've wrestled Powerhouse, how I've been on AEW, etc. All of that mud that I traveled through brought me to where I am now. So I would tell myself to never stop moving and just continue to forge through, no matter how tough stuff gets.
Like I said when we started it, man, my favorite thing about this is hearing everybody's story. That's why I do it. It's such a cool chance to listen to each individual story as to how they've done it, how they've got through their career and everything. But this is the part of the interview that almost has nothing to do with wrestling.
All right.
I always end with 5 random questions, some having to do with wrestling, some not. I think one of your 5 does. So
right.
I've got them queued up. You ready?
Shoot. Let's go.
All right, number 1. What's your favorite venue you've ever had a chance to wrestle in?
Ooh. Old Dominion University, AEW in Virginia, strictly because of the fact that I'm such a huge WCW mark that I was about like half a mile away from the Norfolk Scope. And that is my favorite arena in the entire country. So the fact that I got to wrestle in Norfolk, Virginia, in that rich territory of wrestling history, it's my favorite venue ever. If I had to pick a favorite indie venue, though, the NEW Arena in Bethany. There's nothing like it. That energy, that crowd, those Northeast Wrestling faithful that are at every show that get their season tickets, you can't duplicate it, man.
Number 2. What's your favorite movie?
Pulp Fiction.
Great pick. You can never go wrong with a Tarantino movie in any scenario.
Absolutely not. Love it.
Okay, number 3 is food. Chef by trade, mark by choice. I got to ask some food questions. If you had to pick between the two, tacos or hamburgers? Cheeseburgers. Tacos or burgers?
Oh, that's hard, dude. It's hard, dude. I'm such like a burger connoisseur.
Love a good burger every time.
Love a good burger. Man.
Last 5 are always the toughest, man. We could talk about wrestling all the time, but when I ask something like tacos or burgers, you're like, fuck, Will.
Yeah, dude. Like, you just fucking threw me for a loop. I'm gonna go burgers. I'm gonna go burgers. I love a good taco, and like I love a good taco, but I don't know, man. Something about a burger.
Number 4. Do you think a hot dog is a sandwich?
Oh, I asked this question in almost every locker room I'm in. just to get responses. Like, so that's all I want.
You
Just
get
like
it
a
then. You
fucking
understand why it's there.
oh because it's I mean it could be an open face sandwich, but I mean can I curse on here?
Absolutely. I've got the E for a reason. You say whatever the fuck you want.
All right, cool. A hot dog's a fucking hot dog, man. Fuck that. Hot dog's a fucking hot dog, dude.
All right.
Oh shit. Cool.
All right, number
Open
5.
face. It's an open face sandwich. Oh,
It's an open face sandwich. Okay, well, see, that's the blend we get between both. Okay, it's kind of an open face sandwich there.
It's an open face sandwich.
All right, number 5. Who's your favorite musical artist right now? Who are you listening to the most?
Right now, dude, we could do a whole podcast on music. Right now, I am really in, and this is probably gonna throw people for a loop based on who Lucas Chase is in the ring. I'm a huge Ed Sheeran guy.
Nice.
I play guitar, and I actually released a record, a singer-songwriter, like acoustic record, when I was about like 24.
That's dope. Oh, yeah.
So like I really love people who write their own shit. And Ed Sheeran's Subtract album is fucking phenomenal. Very, very good musicianship and writing. I actually have, so I don't know if you can see, but I got Corey Taylor tattooed on me right there.
Love Slipknot.
Slipknot. Corey Taylor's the reason I became a musician. Slipknot's my all-time favorite band. I have the Slipknot logo. There goes John Lennon, because I'm a huge Beatles guy. Right there. I have M Shadows from Avenged Sevenfold on me.
That's dope.
Right there. Wu-Tang. Give it up for the Wu-Tang.
Big Wu-Tang fan.
Being from the Bronx, I'm a huge Wu-Tang guy. Yeah, man, but Ed Sheeran, I'm all about. If I'm in the gym, it's going to be Avenged Sevenfold. It's going to be A Day to Remember. It's going to be Memphis Mayfire. It's going to be, guys like that, bands like that, The Used, shout out. I got to say this on fucking record because I say it every time I work at NEW, but I just mentioned The Used. And the best fucking entrance theme on the Indies is Matt Taven's Pretty Handsome Awkward by The Used. Hands down the best fucking theme on the Indies. Every time that music hits, I'm just like, I fucking love it.
Dude, Matt Taven's had some fucking banging, absolute bangers of entrances too.
Oh, 100%, dude.
All right, Lucas, everybody's favorite part of the episode because I shut the fuck up and let you put yourself over. Tell everybody what you got coming up. Plug your socials. Tell everybody where to find you, brother.
Yeah, so I will be, if you need to reach me, you can reach me on, very active on Twitter and Instagram. Both are at the Lucas Chase. Be sure to give me a follow, hit me up, comment, like, subscribe, whatever you want to do. You can also find me on Facebook, facebook.com/Lucas Chase. I'm very active all through social media. I try to post every single day, on Instagram, Twitter. I'm very, very active. I'm always tweeting my thoughts about shit no one cares about. But you can actually catch me coming up May 20th. We have New World Wrestling Extreme in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. And then May 27th and 28th, I will be up in Concord, New Hampshire at Wrestling Federation America, taking part in their inaugural championship tournament. Guys in that tournament, Channing Thomas, Brian Malonis, Delirious, Brad Baylor, guys like that are in that tournament. It's going to be an amazing time. And then, of course, fast forward June 9th with Hijo de Vikingo at Northeast Wrestling in Waterbury, Connecticut. And then June 17th, Northeast Wrestling Spring Slam Tour invades Six Flags Great Adventures in New Jersey. And then we have June 2nd, actually, we have PAPW Recharged. The Lucas Chasing Greatness Open Challenge is in effect for that. So stay tuned because we have some special rules for those matches created by yours truly. So definitely check that out. If you want to know where I'm coming up, just check me out at the Lucas Chasing on Instagram and Twitter, and be sure to catch me on the road.
Well, Lucas, man, I really appreciate it. I always appreciate the time, taking it out of your evenings, hanging out a bit with me, and chat about some wrestling.
No, thank you for having me. Well, I definitely, if you would have me back again, I will definitely come on in a heartbeat. And you said you're Nashville based, right?
Correct.
Well, I had a little bit of a stint in Nashville on my way down and back from Austin.
Yeah?
And I got to tell you, I love that town with all my heart. And my favorite place, there's two, Winners and Losers, my favorite bars down there. Okay, very good music, very good live music. But Nashville, there's a little pizza spot. It was a chain. It's called Two Boots Pizzeria. And that is an original Northeast based pizzeria. And the last open one is in Nashville. They closed all the other locations. The last one is in Nashville, Tennessee.
Look at that. Come down here, do some wrestling, hang out. We'll eat some pizza, man.
That's it. I love it. Sounds good.
All right. For the Lucas Chase, I am the Will Gray. Thanks for stopping by and listening, my people.